Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of standing orders 59A, 59B, and 63 to enable the House to proceed with the second and third readings of the following bill for an act shortly entitled the National Bureau of Statistics Amendment Bill 2024.
Mr. Speaker, I second that motion. Motion, put the motion.
So you didn't hear it?
Did you hear it, Mr. Speaker? All right, sir. Could you repeat?
Okay. Can you hear me now? Thank you. Fine. Order 16A.
Okay.
I move the suspension of standing orders 59A, 59B, and 63 to enable the House to proceed with the second and third readings of the following bill for an act shortly entitled the National Bureau of Statistics Amendment Bill of 2024.
And Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second and third readings of the following bill for an act shortly entitled the National Bureau of Statistics Amendment Bill of 2024. Mr. Speaker, what we're seeking here to do is to strengthen the National Bureau, or first of all, to establish a National Bureau of Statistics, and to, generally speaking, strengthen the let's say the mining of statistics, if I can put it that way, and certainly the dissemination of reliable statistics. We all know that within small island developing states that there's a major problem in getting timely and accurate statistics. So what we're seeking here now is to pass this modernized and harmonized statistical legislation in line with the CARICOM Statistics Bill. And this alignment is intended to ensure consistency in statistical practices and reporting across the Caribbean region. So we are literally harmonizing to ensure that we use the same methodologies and the same structure in order to be able to produce timely and certainly very accurate statistics. The amendments proposed in this bill will strengthen the National Statistics Bureau, ensuring that it can effectively meet the demands of a dynamic and data-driven environment. We all know that data is the new oil, and that, let's say, strategic decision-making will be based on data. Unfortunately, in most developing countries, as I said before, you have these data gaps. So what we're seeking to do now is to close the data gaps and to strengthen the statistical division, to ensure that we can harmonize the various agencies within the government and certainly within the private sector that produce statistics for planning purposes, and even in terms of when certain indices and so on have been developed globally. They require national statistics from various countries, and we have to make sure that we're in a position to provide accurate and timely information. And I give you a case in point. I served as the co-chair for the development of the MVI, that is the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index. And we looked at various statistical indicators to utilize in the development of the index. Now, one of the critical indicators would have been the issue of debt. But what we found was that among a number of developing countries, especially small states globally, we could not get the timely and accurate information. And as a consequence, we had to leave out a very critical indicator in the construction of that index. That is the issue of debt. So we have indicated that a future such index, or the updating of that index, we will have, hopefully by then, we'll have strengthened the statistical divisions within the various countries, and we'll have more timely and accurate information on debt, so that we can introduce, or to utilize for that matter, debt as one of the indicators in the construction of that index. Now, generally speaking, Mr. Speaker, we have had an issue in terms of various entities within the private sector and even the public sector cooperating in producing timely information. So for example, within the private sector, certain entities involved in various sectors, in banking, in manufacturing, etc., they are tasked with the responsibility of providing information on a routine basis to the statistical division. And many of them have not complied with the requests. As a consequence, what we have done here is to strengthen the authority of the new statistical bureau, which will have the authority now to examine the records and at the same time to introduce penalties where they fail to cooperate. I mean, if you look at the banking sector as an example, as we seek to manage, let's say, credit within the society or to determine the amount of savings and so on, it is important that all of the entities involved in the financial sector supply timely information. Those who are importing goods, even importers, for example, we expect them to provide timely information so that we'll have accurate trade statistics. Now, there are members in this House who from time to time would have criticized our administration, and this is not new. In fact, this has been a criticism practically of all administrations since independence, in which we have not had very timely information. We have not had regular surveys, including statistical surveys on the labor market and so on. As a consequence of this strengthening of the statistical division and to literally make it into a standalone bureau, a statutory organization rather than a department of government, what we're doing here is to further enhance the capacity of this bureau to ensure, one, it can obtain the necessary information, and again to be able to disseminate that information throughout the society. Truth be told, within the public and private sectors, planning has been marred to some extent by not having accurate and timely information. As we move forward and we seek to achieve resilient prosperity for our people, we have to improve the level of planning, especially strategic planning. And effective planning is actually driven by data. You recall, Mr. Speaker, early in the audit paper, we introduced the first reading of the Artificial Intelligence Act. And what we're seeking to do here is to utilize a significant amount of data to make intervention in various sectors, healthcare, education, financial services, so that we can utilize the data in order to power these artificial intelligence information systems that we will be introducing. So for example, we expect to be utilizing a significant amount of artificial intelligence in healthcare, but again, you need the data. And in many instances, we expect the new National Bureau of Statistics to be in a position to provide the data. And if they are not in a position to provide accurate and timely data, then evidently it will undermine those interventions that we hope to make in the near future. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we'll be literally investing about $30 million to acquire our own subsea cable, because we recognize that the use of data will increase exponentially. For example, at UE5 Islands, UE5 Islands will utilize a significant amount of data in education, in our secondary schools or primary schools, even at the level of early childhood. We want to be in a position to introduce our students at an early age to use the various technologies. And I recognize, based on the objectives of my administration, the vision of my administration, that having timely and accurate data will become more and more critical. And as I said, this is very important from the standpoint of building competitive advantage. Now, Antigua and Barbuda is responsible for providing leadership for small island states to assist them to achieve the SDGs, I would say, well beyond the next decade. And one of the undertakings that we have actually agreed to is for us to establish a data hub here in Antigua so that we can produce very accurate and timely statistics. But we also will be helping other small island states globally to build capacity so that they too will have the capacity to have timely and accurate data. So what we're doing here too is to lead by example, and obviously to develop a prototype that could be literally replicated in other small island states globally. Now, just to speak specifically to a few of the clauses, Mr. Speaker, Clause 3, this clause amends the interpretation section of the Principal Act to incorporate essential terms and definitions as provided in the character model. As I said before, this is harmonized legislation. And this is a foundational update to ensure that the terminology used in the legislation is aligned with the regional standards and facilitates a common understanding across member states. And just to give an idea, Mr. Speaker, of the various definitions, for example, you would observe that on the amendment of Section 2, that is Clause 3, it speaks about inserting the appropriate alphabetical position, the following. Administrative data, this means data that are combined from administrative records that are compiled for regulatory purposes or to support and document the administration of various government agencies and programs. Anonymized means the removal of direct identifiers from a record to reduce the risk of disclosing the units of the population contained therein. And one of the fundamental aspects of data collection is to ensure too that confidentiality is maintained, and those provisions enshrined in this act so that those who are providing information would not have to worry about any potential leaks, and where there are those leaks, obviously there will be consequences. It also speaks to big data, and big data here is described as data sources and data sets with a high volume, velocity, and variety of data, which require new tools and methods to capture, curate, manage, and process them in an efficient way. And we also have here, as part of the definition, microdata. And microdata is data on the characteristics of units of a population, such as individuals, households, or establishments, collected by a census, survey, or experiment. In fact, we'll be having a census later this year, and I certainly want to take the opportunity to ask all of our citizens and residents to cooperate fully, even the residents who may be here who may not necessarily be legal. We still want them to cooperate. We don't have a history of deporting anyone, and the importance of having timely information and accurate information is very important. So as we plan for the population, we need to know precisely how many people are resident here and the demographics associated with these individuals so that we can plan appropriately. So I'm asking each citizen, each resident to cooperate fully with the census so that we will have accurate information for planning purposes. Now, within the interpretation section, they also speak to national statistical system, and this means the statistical system established under Section 3A. And person here means, or where the term is used in relation to a person furnishing or required to furnish any information on this act, includes individuals, firms, partnerships, associations, unincorporated bodies, companies, corporations, and ministries and departments, agencies of government, as well as individuals constituting a firm or partnership in the case of an association, unincorporated body, company, or corporation, directors, manager, or secretary, and in the case of a ministry, department, and agency of government, the head by whichever name is called. So all entities, corporate, non-corporate, public, private, are required to confine themselves to the provisions of this act and to supply relevant information on a timely basis as required by this act. And where they fail to cooperate, there are obviously penalties. So you will note, Mr. Speaker, on the Amendment 11, it speaks to offenses and penalties, and the penalty is as high as $10,000 on the 11, in which Section 17 of the Principal Act is amended. Under subclause 4, it repeals the words $2,500 or a term of imprisonment not exceeding 6 months, and replace it with $10,000 or a term of imprisonment not exceeding 2 years. So you can recognize here, Mr. Speaker, what we're seeking to do here is to literally force compliance by increasing the fines. So if, let's say, for example, there's a particular bank that is required to send monthly returns, and that bank fails to do so, Mr. Speaker, a fine of up to $10,000 could be introduced. And in addition, or imprisonment for that matter, if there's persistent non-compliance. And it also provides for an additional $1,000 to be paid daily if there is persistent non-compliance. And it's not that we want to be draconian, but evidently the $2,500 was not a deterrent, so we have decided now to increase the amount, and this is designed precisely to ensure that there is compliance because of how important data is I mean, there's someone who said years ago that data is a new oil. And if we do not have the mechanism to collate information or to collect it and certainly to disseminate it, certainly for planning purposes, then obviously it will be self-defeating. So again, I just want to ask these various entities in the public and private sector to cooperate fully, because the data that we're collecting is critical for all. Even for those entities that are supplying the data, it is also important for their organizations for planning, and we expect them to cooperate fully. Mr. Speaker, Clause 4, this clause provides the full name of the Principal Act. Clause 5, the clause introduces the concept of a national statistical system. I was spoken about that previously. Clause 6, the clause expands the functions of the National Statistical Bureau by broadening its mandate. The Bureau will be better equipped to meet the evolving needs of statistical data users, and practically all entities, all of us, all individuals, we have some use for data, even within our homes, to plan effectively, even to budget for that matter, Mr. Speaker. Clause 7, the clause increases the number of members of the board of the National Statistics Bureau. The expanded board will now include representatives from critical sectors such as health, education, information technology, and tourism. And you can understand the importance of having timely tourism data, even to plan our marketing and promotion of tourism globally. We need to determine the demographics and the needs of these tourists, so that we can have some form of bespoke marketing or promotion for that matter, in order to expand our tourism product. And I would have indicated the use of the data within healthcare and even in education. I mean, we, for example, intend to utilize artificial intelligence in the future to the extent that if, for example, we have a shortage of math teachers, we can utilize artificial intelligence to have a teacher in a particular classroom, perhaps with students, and teaching remotely and concurrently to other students in other schools. This is precisely where we're going. But again, the data is very, very important. And that is one of the main reasons too, because of this next level improvement in the planning and certainly delivery of services, why we have increased the penalties to force compliance. It's pointless, for example, that the government is spending up to $30 million to introduce its own subsea cable, and then we can't get the necessary data so that we can introduce the various artificial intelligence technologies and the other digitalization technologies. And we're doing this not only to expand our horizon, to provide opportunities for Antiguans and Barbudans to provide data services and to export those services and to earn a living, but also to make very critical interventions in various sectors, including healthcare, education, tourism, as indicated. Clause 8, this clause introduces a provision for independence of the Director General in performing the functions related to national statistical reporting. The Director General shall carry out these duties free from the control of any personal authority, ensuring the objectivity and credibility of the national statistical outputs. Again, we want to make sure that there is no credible claim of any political intervention in the publication of information, even national accounts, for example, the rate of growth. Whenever we have this information published by this independent entity, the people of Antigua and Barbuda should feel assured that it's credible and objective information. So again, we're ensuring the independence of the new statistical national bureau that we are now seeking to establish. On the clause 9, this clause inserts two new sections in the Principal Act. The first new section addresses the taking of censuses and surveys. This provision mandates the regular and systematic collection of demographic and other vital statistics essential for informed policy making and planning. So no shooting in the dark, making sure that whatever plans that we have, that they are informed by reliable statistics. The second new section ensures that all official statistics must comply with international principles and standards. So there should be no one speculating, for example, that we've established our own standards. We're literally establishing standards that are subjected to regional standards and even international standards. Clause 10, this clause introduces a provision allowing for other property that can be used as a source of funds to be vested in the Bureau. So the Bureau will now have the capacity to deliver services and to collect funds, and will be able to provide some level of partial funding. Obviously, this would not necessarily be a profit center and will be continued to be funded by the central government. And again, I would have spoken about offences and penalties before. On the clause 12, it speaks to board meetings, and what is required here now is for board meetings to take place at a minimum quarterly instead of the biannual requirement that existed prior. And again, this is to ensure the efficacious functioning of the new Statistical Bureau. And then there's a fourth schedule that introduces or mandates the division responsible for statistics to uphold international statistical standards, and those are enshrined in the amendments, Mr. Speaker. And these are for the members of the Parliament on page, I don't see a page number here. It's page 9, yeah, page 9. Under the fourth schedule, it speaks to the various standards that will be adopted based on the United Nations General Assembly standards, ensuring that the statistics that are produced here, that they're done based on international standards, and we're also adopting the CARICOM Statistics Code of Practice as well, to ensure that there's professional independence, that we have policies to cover the mandate for data collection, adequacy of resources, and that we also have a commitment to quality, because the quality of the data is very important. Also speaks to statistical confidentiality, and again, we want to ensure that the various suppliers of the information of data and even the users of data, that the information will be kept on a confidential basis, and to ensure impartiality and objectivity, sound methodology. Again, we must be able to defend the methodology that is utilized to analyze the statistics and the dissemination of the information arising from the data. And this will be based on regional and international standards. We're also ensuring too that there is no excessive burden insofar as the respondents are concerned, that is those who supply the data. We will make it as simple as possible. I'm quite sure that in many instances there'll be standard forms that will be created, and all that is necessary is for a member of staff, a clerk for that matter, to fill information and to submit information on a timely basis to the statistical office. And obviously we want to make sure that the collection of data is cost effective, and that there's relevance, there's accuracy and reliability, as well as timeliness and punctuality. So these are the standards that have been well established. Mr. Speaker, this is certainly a welcome bill as we seek to strengthen our statistical department, which will now be a standalone bureau compared to being a department of government. And as I said before, it's a form of harmonized legislation based on regional standards. And I'm very pleased to recommend this bill to this Honorable House for its consideration. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
And as a member for City